There is a question that every civilization eventually faces. It rises wherever humans gather, wherever laws are written, and wherever people ask what is right and what is wrong. The question is simple, but its consequences shape everything we are. Can morality survive without God? Many people today believe morality is just a product of culture. Others believe it is the outcome of evolution. Some argue that humans invented moral rules as a way to cooperate and avoid conflict. And a growing number say morality can remain perfectly intact even if God does not exist. But before accepting any of these ideas, we have to understand what we really mean when we use the word morality. Because if morality is merely preference, then it cannot guide us. If it is just an emotional instinct, then it cannot bind us. And if it is only a social agreement, then it collapses the moment the agreement changes. To ask whether morality can survive without God is to ask a deeper question. Is there such a thing as moral truth? Not moral feeling, not moral opinion, but moral truth, solid, binding, universal, standing above cultures and individuals. When someone says human trafficking is wrong, are they describing a personal dislike? Or are they recognizing a truth that would remain wrong in every country? In every century, even if the whole world disagreed? Before answering, imagine a world where moral truth does not exist. In that world, nothing is inherently right or wrong. There are only preferences, and the strongest preference wins. Most people sense that something is deeply wrong with that conclusion. We feel compassion, justice, and responsibility not because evolution programmed us to, but because these realities seem to point towards something beyond nature. They feel like signals from a moral order woven into the fabric of reality. And that recognition is the starting point of our investigation. Throughout history, every civilization that believed in objective morality grounded it in something greater than humanity. The Greeks rooted it in the good. The Jews rooted it in the law of God. Medieval thinkers rooted it in the very nature of the Creator. Even many Enlightenment philosophers, while questioning religion, assumed moral truths existed independently of human judgment. But in the modern age, belief in God has declined. And along with it, confidence in objective morality has started to fracture. People want moral values without a moral foundation. They want human rights without a moral lawgiver. They want human dignity without a creator who gives that dignity. The result is a culture caught between two worlds. On one hand, we still speak of human rights, justice, freedom, and equality as if they were universal. On the other hand, we are told the universe is a collection of particles, indifferent to our values. The tension is impossible to ignore. If every person is just a biological accident, why should any life have inherent worth? If morality emerged from evolution, why should anyone obey it when it becomes inconvenient? If morality is invented, why must anyone follow it who didn't agree to the invention? So we return to the core question. Can morality survive without God? To find the answer, we must explore what morality actually requires. First, morality requires objective value, a real difference between good and evil. If morality is only emotion, like preferring chocolate over vanilla, then it cannot command anyone. But we do not experience morality as taste. We experience it as obligation. When we see someone abused, cheated, or humiliated, we do not simply dislike it. We judge it. We feel indignation, because we instinctively know something wrong is taking place. That judgment implies a real moral standard, not one invented by society. Second, morality requires transcendent worth, the idea that human beings possess inherent value that no government, ideology, or individual can take away. But inherent value cannot come from atoms. Matter does not produce moral significance. If humans are nothing more than biological machines, then human rights are an illusion. Without God, the worth of a human being depends entirely on society, power, and usefulness. And history shows what happens when societies decide certain groups are less valuable. Third, morality requires ultimate accountability. If nothing stands above humanity, then every moral judgment is temporary. Many people insist that morality must be independent of religion. But imagine two people. One risks his life to save strangers. The other commits crimes without remorse. If both end up in the same state after death, if justice never has the final word, then moral difference becomes meaningless. Without accountability beyond this world, morality loses its seriousness. It becomes a polite suggestion. And suggestions cannot hold societies together. Fourth, morality requires a rational foundation. If the universe is purely accidental, then so are our thoughts, beliefs, and moral convictions. But if our minds are accidental accidents, why trust anything they conclude, including moral judgments? For reason to be meaningful, the universe must be grounded in a rational order. And that points beyond materialism. Without these four elements, objective value, inherent worth, ultimate accountability, and rational grounding, morality collapses into preference. And each of these elements is only coherent in a universe created by a moral God. Without God, morality can be practiced, but not justified. Many atheists live moral lives. Many believers live immoral ones. But the question is not whether atheists can behave morally. They can, and often do. The question is whether atheism can explain why morality is binding. And the answer is no. Evolutionary theory attempts to explain morality as a survival mechanism. It argues that humans developed moral instincts because cooperation helps groups survive. But this reduces morality to biology. If morality is only a survival instinct, then acts of love, sacrifice, courage, and forgiveness lose their meaning. And more importantly, evolution also produces aggression, domination, and selfishness. If evolution is the source of morality, then evolution justifies everything it produces. And that is a world where cruelty has the same moral status as generosity. Another attempt to ground morality without God is social contract theory. But social contracts have no authority beyond collective agreement. When the majority changes its mind, morality changes with it. In such a world, anything can be justified if enough people approve it. But real morality cannot depend on popularity. If an entire nation supports injustice, the injustice does not become good. That simple truth destroys the idea that morality is built on social consensus. Some argue that human empathy is enough. But empathy is inconsistent. People empathize more with those similar to them. People lose empathy when they are angry, afraid, or influenced by propaganda. Empathy cannot ground moral truth. It can inspire kindness, but not justice. Real morality holds even when empathy fades. It stands firm when emotion weakens. It tells us to do what is right even when we feel nothing. Still others say we can build morality on human flourishing. But human flourishing depends on what you think humanity is for. If humans have no purpose, then flourishing has no defined direction. And if flourishing is the standard, then anything that increases flourishing, even at the cost of innocent lives, could be justified. Without God, human flourishing becomes a calculation, not a moral truth. Perhaps the strongest secular argument is that morality simply exists as a brute fact. But facts require explanation. If the universe is just matter and energy, where do moral facts come from? How can an impersonal universe generate personal obligation? How can particles produce principles? A moral law cannot emerge from a universe without a moral lawgiver. Even philosophers who defend secular morality admit it is extremely difficult to ground objective ethics in a naturalistic worldview. Some acknowledge that moral truths seem real but do not fit within a purely scientific picture of the world. Others admit that objective morality may be an illusion, useful for survival, but ultimately false. And some argue that whether morality is objective or not, we should act as if it were. But acting as if is not a foundation. It is a confession that secular morality is built on borrowed capital. Morality can survive in behavior without God, but it cannot survive in meaning. It can survive as habit, but not as truth. And a morality without truth cannot endure. When circumstances change, behavior changes. When desires change, priorities change. When power changes, values change. So what does morality look like with God? It begins with the belief that humans are made in the image of a creator. That single idea has shaped the world's understanding of human rights more than any philosophy ever written. The idea that human life has sacred worth does not come from biology or politics. It comes from the conviction that every person is created by God and carries a reflection of his nature. With God, morality is not invented, it is discovered. It is woven into our conscience. It calls us to something higher than instinct, higher than culture, higher than convenience. Morality becomes not a social tool but a reflection of the character of the one who made us. Love, justice, mercy, fidelity, and truthfulness are not human constructions. They flow from the nature of God Himself. With God, morality has an anchor that does not shift with emotion or popularity. It remains constant because God's character remains constant. With God, morality has authority because it comes from the author of our being. With God, morality has accountability because every action is seen, and nothing is lost. And with God, morality has hope because justice will ultimately prevail, even when this world fails to deliver it. Some fear that grounding morality in God leads to blind obedience. But the moral vision of the Christian faith is not arbitrary command. It is the call to love God and love one another. It is a morality that elevates the weak, protects the vulnerable, forgives the guilty, restores the broken, and invites every person into dignity. Far from restricting morality, belief in God provides the only foundation strong enough to sustain it. When morality is detached from God, it begins to drift. At first, the drift is slow. People continue to act morally out of habit. But as generations pass, the moral language remains while the foundation erodes. Eventually, the words good and evil lose meaning. They become expressions of preference or power. And when morality becomes preference, the powerful determine what is right. History reveals the consequences of that shift again and again. The question of whether morality can survive without God is not about whether individuals can behave kindly without belief. Many can. It is about whether morality itself, objective, universal, binding morality, can remain coherent without a transcendent ground. And the answer is no. Without God, morality becomes a shadow without substance, a vocabulary without meaning, a dream without a dreamer. At the end of the investigation, we arrive at a simple truth. Moral obligation requires a moral source. Moral dignity requires a creator. Moral truth requires an absolute. And moral hope requires justice beyond the moment. Human beings long for justice because justice is real. We long for goodness because goodness is real. We long for meaning because meaning is real. And these realities point beyond us. Morality survives because God exists. And it survives within us because we were made to reflect Him. We live morally not because we invented goodness, but because goodness calls to us. Not because justice benefits us, but because justice is woven into reality. Not because love is useful, but because love is the nature of the one who made us. The question is never whether morality can survive without God. The deeper question is whether we can.